Hit the streets, the city's on fire. Every moment we live, it's a heart's desire. Dreams in the rear view, future's looking bright. Living for the hustle, shining through the night. Feel the beat drop, it's a rhythm in our soul. With every step we take, we're closer to our goal.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Warrior Vetrepreneur Podcast. And today I have somebody who's on my podcast who used to be an entrepreneur. Actually, if I remember correctly, multiple times, but then moved on to the VA, and he does some awesome stuff. Spent some time in law enforcement. But first, I want to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by Victory Leadership Coaching, and the goal of this podcast is to inspire veterans to move forward after transition and not get stuck. How you doing today, Nick?
Outstanding. How are you? Thanks for having me on, JJ.
Oh man, you're welcome. And I'm great. You know, got a little bit of a head cold here, but you know, the show goes on, right?
That's right.
But yeah, so other than your law enforcement background, you know, you've done a lot of stuff since you've transitioned, and you continue to help people on a different level. I know you're a SARC over at the VA, but if you wouldn't mind, can you kind of share that transition process from when you served to entrepreneurship, or how did that journey go for you and kind of get you to where you are now?
Yeah, sure. It's kind of long and winding, but I'll get to the point.
Sure.
So I served 4 years in the Marine Corps. I was with the Field Artillery Battalion. Did 4 years. Felt like 4 long years. A lot of time in the field. A lot of time. A couple deployments overseas with the 31st MU. Got out in October of 2002, and had big dreams of becoming a police officer. Was pretty much hired with an academy date, and the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department went on a hiring freeze, and my plans were halted abruptly at that point. And so I got out, and I actually went back. It was difficult. I went back to my high school job, the job I was doing in high school, which was delivering furniture for, nearly minimum wage. I went back and did that for a few months, and kind of networked, put my feelers out, and what am I going to do now? And my mom actually ran into one of my old school teachers, and her husband ran a construction company building swimming pools, and he was looking for a laborer. And I was fresh out of the Marine Corps, strong back, strong arms. And so I went and I did a swimming pool construction for close to a year. It was hard work. It was humbling work. But I really enjoyed it, getting out there. And quickly I realized that, I had more to offer than just a laborer. My boss started giving me extra responsibilities. Hey, you're really good at dealing with homeowners. I'm going to send you over to this pain in the butt homeowner, and you can go deal with her. And all right, it was a challenge, but it was also a reward for me, because I felt like, hey, I have something to offer him besides my arms and my back. So kind of started out that way, really started networking. And then I thought, I want to start he started kind of nudging me, saying, you need to start a business. You need to be a landscaper. I need a good landscape contractor. So in the meantime, I was kind of all over the place, just like we all are when we get out of the military. I think most of us that have been out can agree. It's like, what do I do now? And things are coming at you from all angles, and you don't really know where to go and what to do. So I kind of felt like I was blowing in the wind. I got to get my timeline right. So I did that for about a year. I went back to school. I used my GI Bill to take landscape construction, plant ID, turf and landscape management. I was taking all of those classes at the junior college in my community, and I wanted to go get my landscape contractor's license and become a landscaper and partner up with the pool builder. So when he's done with the pools, I come in and I get a landscape contract and do the landscaping. Well, that was, back in, I can't even remember the dates, but then an opportunity came up to go work for the railroad. My dad and my uncles and a long line of railroaders in my family. The railroad was hiring, and I threw my name in the hat because it's a good income. It's, my dad did it for years and paid all the bills and, worked hard, but I knew it was a good career. So I put my name in the hat. I applied for the railroad of all things, and I got hired as a railroad conductor. And, mind you, at this time I was living with three of my good buddies from high school. We were partying. I was having the time of my life, fresh out of the Marines. I had my girlfriend, who's my wife now. We were, having fun. Hey, no more Marine Corps. So I got this job at the railroad, and it was just like grind, 16 more days. You're on call 7 days a week. And I made good money, but I spent good money. So I was broke, making, $300 a day back in 2003 is good money, but I had no money. So I did that for about a year, and I actually started to get comfortable with it. And I was talking to my dad one day, and I was like, yeah, I think I might stay. And my dad said, no, trust me, get out now while you can before you get stuck and you're going to regret it. Because my dad did 42 or 43 years at the railroad. So my dad kind of nudged me, like, if there's something else you think you want to do, go after it. So I did. I actually quit the railroad and I went back to building pools. Believe it or not, I left to, cash under the table building pools, and I went back to school. And then a piece I left out, I never quit pursuing a law enforcement job. From 2002, when I got put on that hiring freeze, I continued applying. And I just kept hitting boundary after boundary. Hey, you don't have a college degree. We're looking for college educated people. On and on and on. So I continued just relentlessly, like, I will not take no for an answer. And I continued applying. And while I was working construction, my second time around, an agency gave me an opportunity in Los Angeles County in California. And it was a smaller police department. Los Angeles County Office of Public Safety is kind of like park police. They police parks, facilities, and hospitals, like county stuff.
Sure.
So at that time, my wife was actually pregnant with our first son, and the timing couldn't have been better. Boom, took the job, off to the police academy. Had a great time. I thrived in the academy. It was like being back, kind of military again, paramilitary environment. I showed up, worked hard, and, dedicated myself to the process, and made it through the academy. And within 6 months long, the academy, I became police officer. I started out my career in Los Angeles County Office of Public Safety. I worked as a park police officer. I worked various parts of Los Angeles County, and then decided that I wanted to be more than a park police officer. After a couple of years, I wanted to, as somebody said to me, you want the whole forest to hunt, not just, little pieces of it. So I started applying for municipal police departments, and I ended up getting hired at a city police department in Ventura, California. And there's where my career really took off, where I kind of dug in and really started learning, and a lot of really good leadership there, a lot of really good people. I would say, as far as law enforcement goes, and I'm being biased, but it's the cream of the crop. They really felt like part of a family, and that they invested in you, and a lot of training. And I took advantage of every opportunity I had at the Ventura Police Department. So I was at the Ventura Police Department from 2008 to 2018. I'm sorry, 2008 to 2018. So I did 10 years there and 2 years at Los Angeles County. So total of 12 years, if my math from Marines is correct. During my time at Ventura Police Department, I did a lot of stuff. Like I said, anything, in the military, we learn not to volunteer for things, right? Like, nope. But there, I had matured, and I looked at things as I wanted a challenge. I think most of us, and that's what we miss when we get out of the service, is being challenged and being tested. And in a weird way, we miss it. It becomes part of who we are.
Yeah.
And so I just started looking for challenges and ways to learn new things and not get comfortable in what I was doing. That's something that whenever I start to feel comfortable, you'll notice that's kind of the theme. I go after something else. So I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse, but it's just the way I am. And so
I think that's a blessing, because you're always moving forward. And I think anybody should have that growth mindset, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah. And I agree. It's definitely like opened a lot of doors for me, but at times I'm sure, if my wife were sitting next to me, she'd be like, oh, because it's like, hey, I got this going. That's not good enough. Let's see what else we can go do. But yeah, it's fun. It's something to chase, I guess. I like to chase and the challenge. But so my career at Ventura Police Department, I was um started out as a patrol cop, working the streets, lateral patrol cop. I had a lot to learn though. Like I said, I came from a smaller, slower agency, but I worked in East Los Angeles, so I got a lot of street experience there, how to deal with people. I learned a lot, but I wasn't like doing all the police things. So I went to Ventura and I got a lot of really good experience, really good training. I became a field training officer, so I was training new cops, fresh out of the academy, showing them kind of, hey, here's how you apply everything you've learned in the academy to real life scenarios. I did that. I really love that. In that meantime, I had a partner that was a hostage negotiator, a crisis negotiator on our SWAT team. And he recommended that I, try and work my way onto the team. And so to do that, I had to go to SWAT training days and be an actor for the SWAT team. So I was a hostage taker or whatever, and I got to barricade in a house and MF them on the phone. I'm not coming out, and then they'd come in and shoot me, or eventually I'd come out depending on the scenario. But or not shoot me, but come in and take me into custody, or shoot me, or I'd come out. It just depends. It's all realistic training. So I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that. And then when an opportunity came to test for the position, I tested and I was selected. So then I became a hostage SWAT crisis negotiator, whatever you want to call it, crisis negotiator. Did that. Started pursuing a career in detectives. From very early on in my career, I loved working sexual assault investigations. I just feel there's no, and I don't want to sound cold, but homicides, there's usually a story. There's usually a fight, a feud, there's something that led to it. It's still a terrible crime, and it's not. I'm not minimizing homicide, but with sex crimes, usually your victims are pure innocents. They're children. They're people that were minding their own business, and to me, that was just the worst of the worst. It's like if I'm going fishing, I want to catch a big fish, and I always thought of sexual assault offenders as the big fish. And so I wanted to investigate sex crimes. So anytime I'd get a case, I'd go up to detectives. Hey, here's what I got. Here's what I got. I ended up testing to become a detective 4 times. Again, denied. Hey, good job, but. So I just kept after it. And my 4th time I got selected. And best thing I ever did, like, you want to talk about a job, like addicting, and I got in there, and ultimately my favorite job is what ended my career. And when I say that, I just mean it affected my mental health, which led to the either I get my head right and leave my job, or I stay at my job and see what happens. And so I made eventually a decision to raise my hand and ask for help. And I subsequently was medically retired on a psychological disability, just from I was working child sex crimes, human trafficking, internet crimes against children, so child porn, for lack of a better term, all of it. So it took a toll on me. I didn't realize it till the wheels fell off.
Yeah,
I didn't
that's
feel
tough.
a bit
That would be
wobbly.
tough to deal with every day. Yeah, that would be really tough to deal with every day. But what did you do next?
So I retired out of law enforcement, not planned. It was kind of abrupt and kind of soul shattering, for lack of a better term. Like you have all these plans to stay in your house and pay it off and be this and retire and make this money and do this, and then everything just changes. There's no where if I compare it to the military, at least in the military, I knew, hey, this is the day. I have until X day to figure something out. I have until this day to, and this just kind of came abruptly. It was a year of workers' comp and the whole process. So I didn't know what the outcome was going to be, but I had a feeling, right? Because you never see somebody come back from a psychological, when they raise their hand and ask for help, they disappear and you don't see them again.
That's
And
really
so,
unfortunate because of the stuff that law enforcement deals with. They, in my opinion, they should provide the help and make ways for them to, if they want to still serve instead of just throwing them out. But
yeah,
I know they're not like the military where they work with people. They kind of just throw them to the wayside.
yeah, and I would say that at the time, this was 2017, 2018, a lot has, to the credit of police work and my department specifically, to their credit, they have done a lot and come a long way, where people are coming back now after short, periods of time off, and they're mandating or providing quarterly counseling and things of that nature, things that I really could have used. And so it wasn't all for nothing. Things have changed since I left. And people are going off, getting, their screws tightening, going back to work. So it has actually changed, which is, what we all want to see. So to their credit, and to the credit of, as far as the culture of law enforcement, it is getting better. And,
Oh, good.
it's at a pretty rapid clip too, surprisingly. Like,
Oh, good.
I'm happy to see it.
Yeah. Because I've talked to quite a few people that have had a similar experience as you did, where they were just kind of thrown as soon as they find out that there's any sort of excessive violence or mental health issues, they just kind of throw them out. But if they're working on helping that is so much better. It's definitely not like what you see in the movies where you can go tear up the town and
Yeah,
then go
yeah.
back to work and just kind of plead with your boss.
Yeah. And when I was in my victim mindset, when I got retired, I was the throwaway cop. How could you just throw me away? I guess I'm only family when I'm showing up to work, and all that. That's how I felt. But what we feel in reality often aren't the same. And
No.
so I struggled with that for a while. Then uh, it- something profound happened that caused me to ask for help, and I'll give the man credit. Um, One of my favorite sergeants in law enforcement, good dude. I'll leave his name out of it, but he pulled me aside one day. He had, it takes a lot of courage to pull somebody aside and say, "Hey, what the hell is wrong with you?" And he did that. He pulled me into a vacant office, like a storage room, and he said, "Hey, what's going on, man?" Because I had worked on his patrol team for a while, and I was kind of giving him clues that something was wrong, but I didn't want to say it, because I was scared. I'm scared, I'll use the word. I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. So I kept throwing little nuggets at him, and he picked up on it, and he pulled me aside. And what he did, though, and I just want to share this so other people that might be struggling, this is what really put the wheels in motion for me, was he talked to me, and he just listened to me. Most of the time, that's all people want. We want to be listened to, whether we're in crisis, we're upset, or we're excited. We want someone to listen to us, right? An honest ear, just listen to me. And so I kind of told him what was going on. I knew I could trust him. And there was a box on the floor full of these little junior crime fighter keychains, or like the little, you put it on your key ring and it says junior crime fighter or whatever. And he picked one out of there. There's probably 1,000 of them in a box, big box. Pulled one of those out and put it in his pocket. And he says, "Anyone going to notice that's gone?" And I said, "No." And he said, "That's you." He said, "This is all just a big machine." He's like, "You step out, we pull you out, there's another part comes in right behind you, and the machine keeps on rolling." He said, "This machine's been running for 100 years, and it's going to continue running 100 years after you're gone." He said, "So if you have something going on, if you have something you need to address, it's okay. Like, no one's even going to notice you're gone." And he goes, "And I don't mean that." He goes, "We'll miss you. Like, we'll miss Nick." He goes, "But the work you're doing will continue. Somebody else will step in, somebody else will pick it up." Because my biggest thing was I had a heavy caseload. I don't want to leave these cases and screw my partners over. I don't want to. I don't want to leave my victims hanging. The victims, the survivors that I was helping, and that was how. And I never really thought of it that way. And for me, that was really the moment where I decided. I mean, that was the moment where he planted the seed, and then it still took a while after that for me to come to
Sure.
the decision that he was right. But I just wanted to share that, because for me, that, as simple and silly as it sounds, that was really profound for me, and that's what set the wheels in motion, where I realized that I wasn't as significant to the job as I thought I was.
Yeah, and that's a great message for those service members that are serving, because really it's the same thing.
Yep.
The wheels of the military, for most branches anyway, it's been since 1775 that the job has been going on and on and on and on and on. And so what makes them
Yeah.
think that if they transition from the military, or for some reason they take some time for themselves while they're still serving, or whatever the case, that it's going to really affect the overall mission as long as they do a good changeover. And so
Yeah.
and even if they don't do a good changeover, they'll figure it out and the mission will
Yeah.
still go on. The military wheel keeps on turning, man.
Yeah, like I said, the wheels might get wobbly, but they're not going to fall off. It'll,
Correct.
they'll keep on turning, and things will be okay. But I think when you take pride in what you do, and when you love what you do and who you're working with, it's a hard thing to accept that,
Yes.
hey, when I'm gone, everything's going to be fine.
Yep.
It's not yours to carry. It really isn't. And somebody also said to me one time that this job does not love us the way we profess our love to it, because we love our job and we'll do anything for this job, but that job will chew you up and spit you out. It doesn't love you.
And anybody who transitions before their actual time, say there's a medical issue or something like
Yep.
that, you certainly find out very quickly how dispensable you are. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard that
Yeah.
story over and over and over again, especially now that you work for the VA. So
Yep. Yep.
you moved on from this from this sexual assault investigating and the police department and all that other stuff at a certain point. If I remember correctly, didn't you start a business doing something similar?
Yeah, so after I was retired, my wife and we packed up our house in California, and we moved where all retired cops go. We went to Boise, Idaho area, and got up there, and I got a job with a investigative software company as a software sales rep, and I was traveling all over the place, but I was still struggling psychologically. I was not in a good place to be doing any kind of meaningful work or selling software. I was alone in motel rooms traveling, and it was just not a good place for me. So I did that for about 7 months, and I quit. I enjoyed the work. I really liked the company, but I wasn't ready to be working. I just wasn't. So I went off, and so it's a big part of my story. So I was struggling. I tried to get a job. I did that for a little while, and I wasn't okay. I was not. Rewind a little bit. I was on psych meds. I was on like antidepressants and anxiety medication. They had, as part of my workers' comp, I agreed to take it, and it really did help me. It got me through probably the worst of the times, the darkest period there. It really, like losing my career, going through that, it really stabilized me. And I came off the meds when I retired, and so I immediately went back down what I call a rabbit hole. Difficulty sleeping, anxiety, anger, all those things started creeping back up. So long story short, I was looking for help. I found an organization called Save a Warrior. In a desperate plea for help at 2 a.m. laying in bed, I applied. I need something. I was looking for like a support group, which I realized don't really exist for first responders, like an actual support group where you go and meet, and I think veterans lack in that too, where it's, just veterans only and no clinical, nothing wrong with that. But sometimes you just need to go talk. But anyways, that's what I thought I needed. So I went through a program called Save a Warrior, and that really changed my life. Just all the things that I didn't know were burdening me and just eating me up. Things I was able to rid myself of all of those things and share the unshareables and basically get all that off my back. And I learned to meditate. They're big on meditation, and I still do it. Did it last night because I couldn't sleep. Boom, start doing that, pass out. So I learned to meditate, learned to get all that stuff. And then when I came home, I felt like a whole new person. I can't even describe it. Just the weight of the world and all that tenseness. I was always tense in my jaw and just angry, and like one noise would set me off. All that was gone. And I thought, man, I'm feeling good. I got to do something with this. I got to keep moving. Right. And so, I've always had like my mom can tell you, I've always loved decorating, putting up Christmas lights. When I was a cop, my house was the Clark Griswold house on the street. Every year I go spend $300 more, and my wife's like, "Oh, geez, what are you doing now?" I got the whole roof decorated. And So anyways, my wife actually suggested, my wife, who's been my rock through all this, putting up with this BS, she always entertains whatever I'm up to. She's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Like, you know, I can't leave her out of this conversation, because without her, I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Behind every great man is an even better woman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because she's always put up with my shenanigans, and all, even when in scary times, she always is by my side, you know, and keeps me feeling, hey, everything's gonna be okay. Sometimes that's all we need to hear. Anyways, love you, babe. Um, she suggested, why don't you start a Christmas light installation business? And I kind of researched it, and I was like, yeah, all right. So we just did it. Like, I was scared. I was telling myself all the stories that we'll fail. We won't be able to do it. You know, all those things. But I relied back on my time in the military and my time in law enforcement. Like, I'm going to take a risk here. I'm going to do something scary. Right. And so I did it. And we started a business. I went and bought a 14-foot trailer. I found an organization that trains. It's called the Christmas Light Installation Professionals Association, or CLIPA. I went out to Oregon, to Portland, Oregon, and sat through, I think, 2 or 3 days of training, and got, you know, certified as a professional installer. I learned all about commercial grade Christmas lighting, like the high end stuff, and where you get it and how to install it, because it's different than the stuff you buy at Home Depot. And we were off to the races, and my God, it was a lot of fun, but it was tough.
Yeah.
It was tough. The first year we did it, I kind of tried. My wife was running her own business, doing her own thing, and I kind of tried to do it all by myself. But I quickly learned that in that industry, you only have, 4 months to make money. And if you don't answer the phone when a customer calls, they're going to immediately hang up and call the next guy or the next gal. And so you have to answer the phone, and you have to give them what they want right away. But I'd be up on roofs, and I gotta give a shout out to my dad and my brother-in-law. They were my guys. They were my employees. They came and they helped build this with me. But I'd be up on the roof, and the phone's ringing, and I'm not answering it, and losing money. And so the first year we did okay. It was rough, but the next year we regrouped, and my wife stepped in, and again, like I said, always there to save me. My wife is really, really good. She figured out how to sell jobs over the phone. I was driving all over the valley trying to do estimates and take pictures, and she streamlined the whole thing and figured out how to do it over the phone. So I guess my point here is, if you're gonna run a business, sometimes you need good people.
Yeah. Well, not just part of your company, but you got to make sure that you're getting out in the community. There are a lot of other entrepreneurs out there that would support you in what you're doing, because everybody knows that, especially in the very beginning parts of it, and I would say the first 5 years, it sucks.
Yeah.
And trying to figure it out by yourself is a losing battle.
Oh, it is. And and the good thing about that CLIPA, the organization I talked about, there's Facebook groups, so I could go on there and search, because somebody's probably already asked the question I have, and so it was really good to have that community. I learned a lot through that. I learned a lot through mistakes, but then I learned that when I was a cop, I really loved going to conferences. For me, that was like a little mini vacation, networking, learning. Well, there's a freaking conference for Christmas light installers.
Oh gosh, of all things.
Yeah, and so I started doing that. I went to that, I think, 2 or 3 years, and I learned a ton, and I met a lot of people. And so now I have people I can call, and people that are looking out for you and want to see your business grow, and that want to see you scale and get better. And so we did that for about 4 years in the business. We made a lot of friends. We met a lot of people in the community. We were pretty successful, and we started doing kind of like home services things. People say, hey, can you clean my gutters? And I said, well, sure. So I went and bought a gutter vacuum, and I started cleaning rain gutters, and we started doing other things for people. And then we ended up deciding Idaho was growing really fast, and my kids weren't thriving there. And so we actually, luck would have it, I was out of town, and we hired a window washer to come clean my windows at my house, because we were listing it. And the window washer was a Marine that just got out of the Marine Corps, literally transitioning out of the Marine Corps. Hey, what are you going to do? And he's like, well, helping my dad with this window washing business. I was like, hey, you want to buy our business? My wife, the one I told you that could sell anything, my wife called me, hey, I just sold the business to the window cleaner. And so we ended up selling our business to a young Marine Corps veteran. And he's still, that was back in 2022. So I think he just finished his second or third season on his own, and he's doing well. So
Awesome.
he's really scaling the business and doing the things I wanted to do. But I was raising 3 teenage boys, not quite the growth mindset that he had or that he has, and he's done well with it. So the business is still alive and thriving, and it's I miss
Well,
it. My wife
you're at a
misses it. But
you're at a different stage in your life now than he was,
yeah,
and you know what? Everybody, I mean, the journey that you have shared, I think there's nothing but growth in that journey. And by the way, Matt Robert, I don't know if you know who that is or not, but he came on here and he said the Christmas light business was a doozy. Great
I'm
interview.
guessing that's my brother-in-law that I gave a shout out to.
Okay. Okay. There you go.
I'm guessing.
Okay. Yeah, but he put that comment up there and I figured I would share it with you because, the fact that you made something successful, sold it, probably gave that young man a little bit of training so that he could do it.
Yeah, I
And
did.
now he is still successful doing the same thing you were doing. It really says a lot for you and probably your wife because I'm sure you didn't do that training alone. But
Yeah.
yeah. So now you're done with the Christmas tree light. It's moved on. It's still a veteran-owned company, and now did you go straight from that to the VA?
No, well, so we moved from Idaho to Arkansas. I got down here and um we I was gonna not work. I have a retirement pension from law enforcement. I was gonna not work and go to school full time, and my plan was to become a licensed professional counselor and work with veterans and first responders. Part of my journey I skipped over. In the meantime, while I was running the business and doing all these other things, I worked for a nonprofit, and I was a program manager, and I helped build a chapter of a nonprofit up in Idaho where we provided free confidential counseling for first responders and their family. Just rewinding a little bit, I utilized this nonprofit when they were brand new, and they paid for my counseling for 11 months for completely free, no questions asked. They never asked for diagnosis, anything. Um, Rewinding again, while I was a cop and I was struggling, I realized you can't just find a counselor that works with cops. It's very, very, very difficult. They're very hard to find because the term culturally competent. They have to understand the culture, and it's the same goes with veterans. Veterans and first responders. So what I found a therapist that had worked with combat veterans during her internship, or while she was getting her PhD. I went and saw her for 11 months, and she didn't know anything about law enforcement, but she learned through me. We learned together. I kind of explained, because she said, well, why don't you just take a couple months off? And I'd laugh at her and then explain. So we learned together, but she was great. She was really good. She got me. Sometimes she frustrated me, but that's their job. Anyways, so when I was up in Idaho, I'm running this after I came back from the Save a Warrior program. I wrote a letter to the CEO of that nonprofit and thanked him for saving me, for taking care of me, and I wanted to check in with them and show gratitude. Hey, here's where I was, here's where I am, and here's how you made that happen. So he reached out to me and offered me a job to start a program in Idaho where I was living, and of course I accepted. And so I did that for while I was running the business. I was also doing that on the side. I was working, 20 hours a week. And I was basically, what I was doing was going out and interviewing clinicians. I was seeking out the culturally competent clinicians that had familiarity with law enforcement and police officers. And I was interviewing them and seeing if, hey, are they fit? Are they good? And I would bring them on. And then we would go out to all the police and fire agencies and introduce our service. And so now the people that are struggling, that aren't ready to raise their hand because of the stigma, or, hey, I'm going to lose my career, because I was fortunate to have a medical retirement. Not all states offer that. Some, if you're deemed unfit, you're fired and you're gone. And so, yeah. And that's the case in Idaho. There's no, things are changing slowly there, but when I was there, that's a fear. If you are asking for help or say I'm struggling, you might be out of a job. And so we brought that up there so that they, our first responders can seek help and their families. It's open to first responders and their families. So because like when we're going through hell, guess who else is going through hell?
Oh yeah.
Our
Probably
wife,
even-
our
Probably
kids.
even more. Yeah.
Pins and needles. Who's dad going to be when he comes home today? What's going to piss dad off this time? And I noticed it. My wife and kids are going, sorry, and so it creates a lot of guilt, but it affects them. So anyways, I left that huge part out. So fast forwarding, so during that work, I decided I wanted to be a counselor. I want to be a therapist. So I went back to get my master's degree in counseling, and I did a semester, and then I kind of had to sit down and think it over. And am I chasing something that's bad for me again? A lot of trauma, a lot of just, I'm wanting to help these people, but I felt like maybe an addict chasing another hit. I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but like, is this going to be good for me? Is this going to hurt me? So I decided to take a semester off and kind of think about it. I really enjoyed it. I finished a semester, I have 4.0. Like I mean, I was learning and it's fascinating. And so then I decided, you know what, I'm just going to go get a job. And this is something I always tell people. I took a job mowing lawns at a national cemetery here in Arkansas. And, considering where I've been and what I've done, that it was a little bit humbling for me. Like, hey, I saw this federal job posted and it was open to veterans, and I'm a veteran and it's close to my house and it pays $18 an hour and it has full benefits. I'm going to apply. And I got the job, and I wasn't proud of it. I didn't tell anybody really, I just got up and went to work, but I shouldn't have been ashamed of it, but I felt a little bit ashamed. Like just a year ago, I owned a business. Now I'm mowing lawns at a cemetery and weed whacking headstones. But something I always tell people is to get a job, you have to get a job. And what I mean by that is take any damn job you can find and it will open doors. If you sit back and you wait and you look for that perfect job that's perfect for you, or that you're entitled to, or that your training experience says is what you should be doing, you won't get it. But if you just take a job, you'll meet people, and opportunity will be everywhere. So I took that job mowing lawns. Within 6 months, I got promoted to a maintenance worker. So then I was no longer mowing and doing those things. I was maintaining historic buildings at the cemetery. Another 6 months later, an opportunity came to test to be a national cemetery director. And so it's a cemetery director development program, which I interviewed. It's 4 pretty strenuous interviews and a lot of, it's stressful, but again, going back to your time in the military, law enforcement, it's really not that stressful. You're just answering questions.
Right.
So you got to lean on your background. I went through that interview process and got selected, and there's 8 people selected out of several hundred across the U.S. And I was entered into this program, and it required me to go up to St. Louis for months at a time, sit in class. And then I would go back. I was assigned a national cemetery as a director intern, and I would go back and then exercise the things I learned in class. So I did that for the program's about a year long, maybe 10 months long. I made it about 5 months, and I really enjoyed it. I love working for the National Cemetery Administration. I mean, the mission's awesome. We are responsible for interring veterans and their spouses and caring for them in perpetuity forever. Those headstones out there from the War of 1812, some of them. And so to me, there was no, it was an awesome experience, and I really loved it there. The reason I left is I have a son that's still in high school, and it was going to require me to move at some point when I'm done with this program. They have a mobility agreement, and you essentially get assigned, or you have to go where there's an opening. And I already moved my family across the country once in their teenage years, and I felt I owed it to my youngest son to make it through high school without being moved. So at the same time I applied for the cemetery director position, I had applied to be a sexual assault response coordinator with the Arkansas National Guard. It's kind of a position that was created after the Vanessa Guillen incident down at Fort Hood. It's a civilian position. It used to be a position occupied by green suiters, as we call them in the Guard, or soldiers. or airmen, or, you know, whatever. And so I had applied for that at the same time, and I never heard back. And so while I was in class one day up in St. Louis, I get a call, hey, we want to interview. So I interviewed. Long story short, I got offered the job. And so I had to make a difficult decision. I left the cemetery director development program and went to the Arkansas Army National Guard here. It offers more stability. I don't have to move my commute. I know where I'll be going. And it's kind of back to what I'm familiar with, and also what I'm very passionate about is helping sexual assault survivors and, you know, being involved in that world. But the gig is good because I'm not dealing firsthand with sexual assault.
No, but you're helping people understand how to deal with that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, the Clay Gecko, not sure who this is. Someone who calls himself Queen. She said, no telling the countless lives you've touched. So proud of you, which is, you know, that's so true. Because when you're the person who has the background, who has the experience, and doesn't necessarily have to do that anymore, but can teach other people how to deal with those situations. And I'm sure where you're at now, I know for a fact, because I was one when I was in the military. You know, you have to follow all kinds of different rules when you're engaging people and all that other stuff. So it's your experience balanced with the military regulations and all of that. I mean, what a valuable thing to have. And you know, the sexual assault response program that the military has, it is so important. It gives people a voice that may not otherwise feel like they have any way to come forward with this tough stuff.
Yeah. And what's good about it is we're removed from the command structure. We're civilians. And so there's none of the concern about, well, if I tell him or her they're my boss, or they might be my boss, or they're the offender's boy or buddy. And so we're kind of like an independent third party person that they can come to. And then I don't answer to anybody in the chain of command, you know, my immediate chain of command. So it's set up that way for them.
Yep, it is.
Yeah,
it's an important job, and I know we've gone a little bit longer, but my gosh, your journey has so many. No, don't apologize. Your journey has so many turns in it, and so many. I guess the only way I can say it is it's kind of a story of resilience. People need to hear these things, and this is the whole reason that I started the podcast to begin with. So I would be going against my mission if I didn't let you share all of this. And I don't think I've had too many people that I've had go over this long, but thank you for sharing your journey. Thank you for sharing the hard stuff, because more of us go through that than a lot of people may think. And when you went through that program, I'm sure you found that out too. And then, you know, not just the first responders, but the veterans and, you know, actually athletes go through this too when they're separated from their positions. And so to have resources like you available in the community, and now you're supporting an entire command, what a wonderful thing.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah.
I mean, best advice I could give, and kind of what I've done, is just keep going, keep moving, never stop moving. If you don't know what to do, keep going. And I tell my kids this all the time. I just say, if you're scared, do it scared. Don't stop. If it's scary, you're going to do it, but you're going to do it scared, you know? Yeah. And so I've been scared a lot. I've done a lot of scary things, and most of the scary things aren't, you know, going into dark buildings with bad guys inside. It's these types of things that we have to do when we get out of the service and when we're navigating life, you know, that you make scary decisions and risky decisions, but you know, that's my dad advice, but I think it applies to life. If you're scared, do it scared. Just keep moving. Don't ever stop.
You know, I've never had this happen on one of my shows, but while you were giving that dad advice, Richard Edwards put a comment on here, and he said, "So proud of you. And yes, I miss the Christmas lights business. Love you, Dad."
Yeah.
What a great way. What a great way to end the live stream. What were you gonna say?
No, I just said, yep, that's my dad.
Yep.
We had a good time together. You know, he worked for me for free. It was like free labor. So I had to feed him and give him his adult beverage of choice at the end of every day. And he was the best free work you could ever get.
Well,
And
I mean,
we had a lot of good memories.
and quality time and the whole 9 yards. I'm
Yep.
sure that was awesome.
Oh, it was. Yeah, it was a good time.
Well, thank you again, Nick. And to close this out, I'm going to go ahead and tell the audience, thank you for sticking with me. If you're still watching, and when you watch in the future, don't be afraid to interact with this. You know, if you have questions for the guests on the show, if you have questions for Nick, put them below. But more importantly, you know, like the videos so that it shows back up again in your feed. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you can get updates on when another show is coming. Make sure you reshare if you really like the program. But the most important thing is always to leave a comment below so that any conversation that I have on the show, we can keep that conversation going. And again, don't forget to like and subscribe on my videos. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, audience, for being a part of my journey and part of this rebranding that I'm doing into the Warrior Vetrepreneur Podcast. And I will see you all again next time.
Thanks, JJ. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate you, brother.
Bye. Likewise, man.